The Dice Odyssey!
Folks, welcome to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kaz, and today we're going to be talking about a game. It's a social deduction game made by Wizkids for 4 to 8 players, BURKE'S GAMBIT. Now, in this game, you're actually on a ship called, interestingly enough, the BURKE'S GAMBIT, and you're actually a deep salvage mission kind of crew. You know, you're going out there into deep space, and you're trying to bring back things to Earth, you know, I mean, just salvage missions and things like that, exploratory missions. And unfortunately, one of you has contracted an actual alien parasite. So I guess think of, you know, the movie Aliens or The Thing. I mean, that's the first 2 movies that came to mind when I first started playing this game. And there's half the crew, basically, that wants to get rid of this thing. They want to find out who's actually got the parasite so they can actually shove that guy out the airlock before they get it back to Earth. But the problem is they've got some guys who work for a huge corporation back on Earth who want to bring that alien parasite back, keep that person alive just long enough to, you know, I guess dissect them and take the alien parasite and use it to make weapons, you know, biohazard weapons or what have you. And you're trying to figure out who those agents are that are trying to do that, and at the same time kill the person who's got the parasite. It's got a nice little twist on it, and this game has definitely got dice. All right, I'm going to show you how to set up the game and give you a general rules overview of how to play BURKE'S GAMBIT, okay? First thing you're going to do is you're going to shuffle up well, first off, you're going to count out how many cards you need, depending on how many players you have. You'll have the blue cards, which is, I guess you would say, the good team. They are the deep space salvage crew, okay? These are the ones that want to airlock the person who actually has the parasite so it doesn't get back to Earth, okay? So if you probably consider yourself the good guys. Now, these guys are the acquisition support specialist. Now, I'm going to let you think about the acronym for that specific name because the rule book plays around with that name a lot. So much to the point that one of my friends at the table said, well, whoever gets these, we'll just call them, you know, dumb, lazy, and Jack. Anyway, for every player at the table, they're going to get 2 life points, okay? Once you've lost these, you're out of the game. Again, player elimination. So if you kill people, they immediately have to, you know, keep in mind these parasite cards have to be dealt face down. They immediately have to flip their card to say, hey, one way or another, if the parasite was in there, if they were the parasite. Now, if the person with the parasite dies, this card gets everybody's diagnostic cards get reshuffled along with the parasite card, and it basically means the parasites jump to a new person. It's a kind of a nice little twist in the game. And at the same time, not only are they having to flip this card and reshuffle them if they were the parasite, for example, then they also have to flip the ID badge card to say whether or not they were on the blue or the red team, okay? Each player is going to get their own specific role card, but the captain has to be in the game. This guy can break ties. He can force other people to use their role ability if it hadn't been used yet. He also starts the game, so he's integral. You have to have him in there. And then you just shuffle in everybody else randomly. One of my favorites, for example, is the personnel officer. Once per game, you may look at another player's ID card, and that would be the secret objective card that you don't want anybody else to know that you've got, right? The role cards are dealt face up to everybody. The secret objective cards need to be face down, just like in Resistance. And then you also get a parasite card, or I'm sorry, a diagnostic card, which lets you know one way or another that you have a parasite, like, for example, that one. There's only going to be one in the game. Now, here's the kicker. You can never look at this card under normal circumstances. The people next to you might be able to, the people across to you might be able to, and lie to you and let you know, hey, you have a parasite. Even if you don't, it just depends on the team they're on and what their goal is, okay? And so now that's the parasite. The one with the parasite is the one that the red team wants to try to save by the end of the game so they can use it to create their biological weapons. Now, they're going to be trying to work towards getting somebody innocent airlocked so they can save this person, okay? Now, the way that the rounds are going to play out is very simple. You got a bag of dice here. I've got them all laid out here just to give you an example. But you're going to pull one die. Let's say it's this one, okay? And I roll it. And so, for example, this specific symbol says, hey, I can hurt somebody, meaning knock their life point out, or I can heal somebody, like myself, for example. Okay? Had I rolled, say, this one, I could actually look at somebody's parasite card to the left or the right of me, right? So this is the way that the game starts progressing when it comes to trying to gain people's trust, right? Now, oh, and I'll give you one of my personal favorites. This one, because I get to look at somebody's ID card. Not many of this in the game, but it lets me know one way or another somebody's on the blue or the red team. That's an awesome one to roll if you can do it. Okay? Now, let's say I'm not happy with what I roll. I get to do one re-roll. Okay? But now I have to resolve it. Except, if I'm still not happy with it, I can go ahead and put it into my play area as a reserve die. And so the next time this comes around to my turn, I can either draw from here or use my reserve die. And even if I draw and use one from the bag and I'm not happy with it again, I can actually replace the reserve die with the new one and put the other one back into the bag. Okay? So that's basically how the game's going to play out. There's going to be a lot of double talk at the table. People are going to be lying to you. You got to try to gain trust, so on and so forth. Okay? Now, the game keeps going on and on and on like this until you keep rolling these. Now, you have to get a certain number of these to power up the engines enough to get you back to Earth. And when you roll, let's say there's a 7-player game, for example, you have to have 6 of these rolled. Once you've rolled this ends your turn. It goes to the next person. And once you get, like I said, 6 of them, for example, in a 7-player game, and it just differs according to how many players there are, the game gets to the final round, which is the voting round. And at that point, everybody's going to count, well, they're going to count down from 3, and everybody's going to go 3, 2, 1, and then they point at the person that they think has the parasite card. Or if you're the red team, you're trying to sway that vote. You're trying to get everybody to point at somebody that doesn't have the parasite because you want them to survive. And again, the team who wins that vote wins the game ultimately. Okay, and that's pretty much how you play Burke's Gambit. This game is awesome. Good night, everybody. No, I'm kidding. The game is great. If you, again, like I said, if you've played the Resistance, you played Bang the Dice game, this is going to be very familiar to you. If you've had any opportunities to play any kind of social deduction game whatsoever, you will feel at home with this game. Now, a couple things that I like about it. Artwork, the artwork's general. It's very science fiction-y, but it's more generalized artwork. It's functional. In some cases, some cards are a little better than others, but in general, it works, right? It's nothing to write home about, but it works fine for the game. The components, I really love custom dice. I like the fact that you got so many different styles. There's only multiples of only a few of the dice in this game. I think there's 18 dice, and there may be 3 sets of each type maybe. So when you pull from the bag, you're not going to get the same thing twice 9 times out of 10, right? Most of the time you're going to get something different, and I like that. That's one thing I absolutely like about this game, and it doesn't really use... like Bang Dice Game is more of a Yahtzee mechanic, right? You roll once, you get 2 rerolls. And this, you get to roll 1 die, not 5, not 6, or anything like that. You roll 1 die. If you don't like what you got, you roll again and you reserve it. I like that because in so many dice games, and I love dice, don't get me wrong, but in so many dice games, you're so stuck on the randomness factor in that game, you can't do anything to mitigate the dice. Well, for me, you still get a little bit of the randomness factor in this game, but I like the fact that you can actually reserve that die if you're not happy with it, and then at the same time, say another die comes up later on, you can still take that reserve die and replace it with a new one. Say you didn't like the new one you just drew. So there's ways that you get around it. You might lose a turn out of it, but at the same time, you didn't play something you didn't want to necessarily. So there's that in the game. I do absolutely love the roll cards. I like the fact that I can be different than anyone else in the game. Bang the Dice Game does this very well. The thing I like Resistance a lot, right? We played it so much. I mean, it was one of the main social deduction games my groups have played for so long. Many times in one night. But the issue I've always had with Resistance was you didn't have a lot of evidence to go on. It's more of a social experiment than it is a game. The way that you get roll cards, the way that you roll dice, it makes this feel more gamey. It makes it feel like you're actually making better decisions, or you have decisions based more on more evidence than in other games like this, like Resistance, right? So roll cards, I love the fact that you get the roll cards. Another thing, I'll have to say, Personnel Officer, there's a couple of them in the game I like. Personnel Officer right now is probably my favorite because I can actually use him to check the ID of another person to see whether or not they're on the good team or the bad team. Basically, not on my team, right? So that's another thing. A lot of social deduction games, I mean, pretty much all of them, you got a traitor, you've got that other team, you're trying to figure out who the other teammates are that are opposing you, right? In this game, you're still doing that, but I love the twist. I love the parasite aspect of it. It changes it up enough to make it feel familiar, but at the same time, fresh. This gives me something new to go on because I don't even know if I'm infected, right? I'm literally, it's not just my deduction I have to worry about. I'm also concerned about the people next to me, you know, who are saying, hey, you have a parasite, or hey, you don't. Are they lying to me? Because remember, the red team, they want to get that parasite back to Earth, so they're going to try to keep, if I've got the parasite, they want to keep me alive so that I don't get airlocked, and they may want to try to lie about somebody who's on the other team, the blue team, to actually make sure that somebody innocent gets killed at the end of the game. They want that final vote to go in their favor. So yeah, it's hard, because if the one thing I'll say this too, going into that, I like the theme. I love sci-fi. That's a huge, huge draw for me. Even more so than some of the other games I play, like Bang the Dice game. It's a huge draw. I love the fact that in this game, the tension is so high. And I do like okay, if you've ever seen any movie that has that similar scenario where somebody's like, oh my gosh, I'm infected, we're about to hit Earth, I better sacrifice myself. See, if you're on the blue team, you'll do that, right? I love when we're sitting here playing, we all kind of get into that mindset like, man, you know, okay, these guys are all saying I'm infected. I've got like 3 people telling me if I'm blue, I'm sacrificing myself for the good of the team and for the good of all mankind. So, like I said, it depends on how much you want to go into it, but I like the fact that you can actually go into the theme that way, and you really feel like you're in a movie or in a great adventure setting. Yeah, it sucks for you, but at the same time, your team wins, right? And all mankind doesn't get wiped out. And so, yeah, I love that dynamic. I love that tense dynamic between the team members because there's so much double talk, so many people lying, and you don't know who to trust. But the cool thing is, unlike Resistance, with the dice, with the roll cards, there's more evidence given to you, not just in what somebody says or a failed mission, but how they use the dice, whether that or not they attack somebody you might trust or not. You see what I'm saying? So that's so many great things going for this game that makes it fresh and new. Now, I will say, love this game, but I do have a couple of things that, not huge issues that bothered me, but you need to know it, right? Because I want to be as honest as I can about it. A couple things. When you have odd and even number games, it feels like the balance is kind of slightly coming out of whack, just a tad, just a little bit, right? For example, the odd number games, odd number players, I should say, the blue team has a harder time. I mean, and that's good. I mean, it needs to be balanced where both teams are, able to kind of combat each other effectively in that way. And so we tended to find the odd number group of players, those games, we tended to find those just a tiny bit more fun, a tiny bit more involved. Now, when you get to the even number players, it's because you lose so many, well, not so many, but you lose another player on the red team for so many of the even numbered games that the red team members, every time they played, they really felt like the extra pressure of having to survive longer and hide out quicker. Yeah, it almost feels slightly imbalanced at even numbered games, but it's not enough to make us upset. But it is there, and it was tougher. So unless you play this all the time, if you're somebody just new jumping in, it might be harder on you. The other thing is there were a couple of games where it felt like the game's brief, and I like that, right? If this game was really long, none of what I just mentioned would work very well, but because the game's brief doesn't overstay its welcome, the game works. But the problem is there were a couple of games where it was a little too brief. We got those engine icons to power up your ship a little too fast. So again, just slight quibbles, nothing huge. Just know it's there. But overall, I love this game. I'm giving it a medium to full. It's about an 8. 8 in my book, maybe an 8.5. I love this game. I will be pulling this game out quite a bit as long as I've got enough of a group of people to do it. Awesome game. Love it. Go get it. And by the way, this thing is not getting a lot of buzz right now, and it really needs to. It really needs to. So anyway, thank you so much for watching the Dice Odyssey. I'm curious, have you actually gotten a chance to play this game? Have you seen it and been like, oh, it's another social deduction game, I really don't want to deal with that, I've already played Resistance and so on and so forth? I've heard that from some people, so a lot of people haven't looked at this. But have you had a chance to, does this review maybe sway your opinion a little bit to maybe give it a chance? Please let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kaz. You have a blessed day, and game away.